In this video, we're going to talk about how you can achieve flow in sports. Hey there, I'm Eli Straw, mental performance coach and the founder of SuccessStartsWithin.com. Flow in sports is that state where you're just performing effortlessly. A lot of times athletes who have really great games, they'll say they were just in the zone, they were flowing, everything felt natural and effortless. And a lot of times they'll say they don't even really remember what was going on. It kind of just all happened because they were one with what they were doing. Now, for you as an athlete, I am sure that sounds like a really great mindset to be in, and it is. But here's the challenging thing about flow. The very nature of performing in flow means that you can't force yourself to get into the flow state. Because when you are in the flow state, you're not really trying, you're just doing. There's no tension there, there's no trying to force anything. So from a mental game standpoint, what we can do is we can focus on using tools to put you in the best position to get into the flow state. We're not going to be able to say that by following these tools, you are 100% going to be in the flow state when you perform, because once again, you cannot force the flow state. You can only work on influencing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about just a couple different mental training tools that I really like to use with the athletes that I work with that will help you train a mind that is more susceptible to being in the flow state. And also one that will help you put yourself in a position to get into flow during games without trying to force this state. The first one is going to be mindfulness meditation. If you are an athlete that's wanting to perform in the flow on a regular basis, I really encourage you to be practicing mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation is where you sit down for 5 to 10 minutes, and then when you get really, really comfortable with it, you can bump that up to 15, 20 minutes. But you just sit down and you focus on your breathing. And the point of mindfulness is you just want to keep your attention centered in the present moment. The reason that mindfulness helps so much when it comes to being in the flow state is because when you are in a flow state, you are completely present. You're completely focused on what you're doing. You are so focused on what you're doing that it almost becomes like you become what you're doing, right? You and your game are one. You and what you're doing are one. And so the more that you can train your mind to get into that state in terms of doing this mindfulness meditation, the more likely you are to perform in a calmer state in terms of your mindset, right? Not a calmer state like you're going to be asleep on the field or court, but a calmer state where your mind is going to be calmer. Then that's going to put you in a better position to get into that flow state during games. Now, to train mindfulness meditation, what you want to do is you just want to focus on your breath. And you want to allow thoughts to come and go, and you don't want to become attached to them. And that's such an important piece and an element when we're talking about getting into the flow state. Because when you're getting into the flow state, or when you're in the flow state during a game, you aren't distracted by thoughts about the past, and you aren't distracted about thoughts about the future. But during a game, how much do you normally think about the past and the future? Probably a lot, because it's so easy to do, especially if you make a mistake, or especially if you're worried about whether or not I'm going to win this game. But by practicing mindfulness, you get used to just viewing your thoughts objectively and not becoming attached to them. Now, if you're interested in learning more about how to start a mindfulness meditation practice, I've linked a video right here that goes into more detail on how you can do so. Now, the next tools that we're going to use are going to jump off that idea of focusing on being present when you're performing. Now, mindfulness meditation is the number one tool that I like to use to build a mind that is susceptible to getting into the flow state. But now, what can you do going into a game and then also during a game to put yourself in a better position to perform in the flow? Well, it's all going to be about keeping yourself present. The more present you are, the more focused you are on what you're doing, the more likely you are to perform in the flow. And when I say performing in the present, right, performing in the present moment, what I mean is you aren't thinking about the past and you aren't thinking about the future. You are just completely focused on what you're doing. And what's cool about this is even if you don't get into that quote-unquote flow state, if you just perform more in the present on a consistent basis, your game is going to improve because you're going to be more focused on what you're doing. You're not going to have as much fear. You're not going to have as much anxiety. You're not going to perform with as much self-doubt, because all of those happen and all those are caused by thinking about the past and thinking about the future. Now, one tool that you can use during a game is to use a refocusing statement. This is going to go off the principle of whenever you lose focus, you are typically just thinking about something else. It's not that you've lost focus, it's that you've focused on something you don't want to be focused on. For example, if you lose focus after a mistake, what are you really focused on? Well, you're focused on the mistake, or you're focused on what coach is going to think of you. You're focused on whether or not you're going to get benched, whether or not that teammate you're competing with that for the position for is going to start over you next game. All of those happen because you made the mistake and now you're thinking about all these consequences, you're getting frustrated and everything like that. That's what happens when you lose focus. What you want to make sure of is that you can refocus yourself back on what you're doing. And that's what a refocusing statement does. It just helps you, remind yourself in those moments to let go of whatever you're thinking about, bring your attention back into the present. And so a really simple one that I've used and I really like to use because it is so simple is let go, take a breath, refocus. It's something just as simple as that, and it might seem like that wouldn't work. But the interesting thing is, it does work because it reminds you in the moment to let go of that mistake, let go of whatever you're thinking about, and just bring your attention back into the present moment. Now, the other tip or the other tool that you can use to keep yourself more focused in the moment during games is to just keep things simple. And when I say keep things simple, I mean keep everything simple about your game. And the best way you can do this from an actionable standpoint is by setting very specific cues for the game. These specific cues are going to be centering your attention on your game in a simple way to make sure that you're not overcomplicating or overthinking everything. In all reality, during a game, you don't want to be thinking at all. You just want to be performing. You just want to be playing. That's why you train so hard. You train so hard to make sure that come game time, you're just ready to perform. But a lot of times what happens is you overthink and you try to force things. By keeping it simple in terms of the way that you're thinking and the way that you're approaching the game, you make sure that you allow yourself to just play. And by just playing, you put yourself more in that position to get into the flow state. Now, to keep things simple, I encourage you to set maybe 1 or 2 cues for the game. If you play a sport where you have to play offense and defense, so I always like to use baseball as an example, because baseball players, as long as you're not a pitcher, you're hitting and you're playing in the field. So you're going to have a different cue for hitting and you're going to have a different cue for playing in the field. But one simple cue that I like for infielders especially is repeating to yourself, I want the ball before every pitch. And then one that I've used a lot in terms of hitters is saying, let the ball travel, or keep my hands back, or stay balanced at the plate. Another example is a tennis player I worked with who had the cues of focus on my footwork and keep my head still when I'm hitting. The cues are just something that you can set and focus on that's going to help you just simply play and stay in the present moment when you're performing. Now, like I said, the flow state is not something that you can force, it's just something that you can influence. But by practicing mindfulness meditation on a consistent basis, you build a mind that's more susceptible to performing in the flow. And then during games, anything that you can do to keep yourself more present in the moment, such as using a refocusing statement or using some cues and objectives, the better and the more likely you are to perform in the flow. If you have any questions about this video, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you like the video, please hit that subscribe button to get new videos every single day on sports psychology and mental training. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.